Unleashing Creativity. Welcome to a new short course titled Unleashing Creativity, taken from the book Training Courses by Muteb Alqarni. In this course, we will discuss how can we become creative. We will explore the approaches to creativity and innovation, as well as the steps in generating ideas. To start, what does creativity mean? Creativity is bringing forth something, 1, new, and 2, useful. Both of these conditions must be met for something to be considered creative. There is no creativity in the new unless it is useful, and there is no creativity in the useful unless it is new. However, being useful is more necessary for something to be creative than being new. New drugs cannot be described as creative because they are not useful, and a useful idea cannot be diminished because it is not new. Let's delve into the details. Yes, utility is more important than novelty, and as the saying goes, there is nothing new under the sun. Everything considered creative today is a useful idea, but not necessarily new. It might be a development of a previous idea or the adoption and revival of a buried proposal, and so on. In short, creativity is about bringing something practical, which is something useful and new in a specific context. For example, Marco Polo, a Venetian explorer, traveled along the Silk Road to China, and upon returning to Italy, Polo shared his experiences and knowledge of Chinese inventions such as paper money, coal for heating, and noodles. These concepts were not entirely new to the Chinese, but they were entirely new to Europeans and useful for them. Therefore, let's agree to forget the word new when thinking about creativity, because creativity is about bringing forth something practical, meaning bringing forth something useful in the current situation. And because it's useful, it will be considered new in the context it appears. We will divide this course into 4 sections to fit the 4 P's of creativity. The first P, or the first section, process, which discusses creative thinking methods. The second section, place, which explores the conditions of the environment that encourage creativity. The third section, person, which examines the characteristics of the creative individual. And the fourth section, product, which looks at the characteristics of the creative product. We will discuss each section in detail. We will start now with the first P, which is process. So what are the methods of creative thinking process? The best method for creativity is the SCAMPER model, where SCAMPER is an acronym representing direct 7 tips for creativity. Substitute, combine, add or adopt, modify, put to another use, eliminate, and finally, rearrange. In summary, the SCAMPER model suggests that there is nothing new under the sun. So if you want to be creative, ask yourself, what can you add to something or eliminate from it, or modify it to make it practical? Let's start with the first tip, substitute. Given that creativity aims to solve problems, to be creative, substitute something in the current thing in your hands to solve an existing problem. For example, water bottles used to break when they fell because they were made of glass, which is a problem. So they substituted glass with plastic, and they solved this problem. Also, people used to carry 100 cents as heavy metal coins, but now they are carrying only a single $100 paper note, meaning that they substituted iron with paper, which is a creative way to solve an existing problem. Streetlights used to consume electricity, so they switched them to consume solar power, solving a problem. Even replacing ministers with other ministers can be considered creative thinking because it solves a problem. Look at 3 things around you. Can you substitute aspects of them to solve an existing problem? The second scamper tip is combine. To be creative, combine two things together to make something practical. For example, in the past, people dipped the quill in ink to write, but later, someone creatively combined ink inside the quill, creating a pen. It's a creative idea that solved a problem by combining two separate things. Similarly, there used to be a separate camera for photography and a separate mobile phone for communication. So, they creatively combined the camera into the mobile phone, making it both for photography and communication. They also combined the keyboard and the mouse into the laptop, which used to be separate in desktop computers. Look around you. Can you combine two things together to provide a practical solution to a problem? I see perfume and moisturizer. Can I combine them? They did it and produced scented creams. The third scamper tip is add. To be creative, add something new to the current thing to solve an existing problem. For example, old mobile phones used to have poor signal reception and weak network coverage, so they added an antenna to the mobile phone which improved signal reception. This is not combining, but adding, because the antenna is entirely new. They did the same with radios. Remember, creativity aims to solve problems. So, old computer users used keyboard keys to move the cursor on the screen, so they added a mouse as a new addition to facilitate movement. They also added a handle to the coffee cup to prevent you from burning your hand. This is creative thinking. Look at three things around you. Can you add something new to them to solve an existing problem? Although some read the letter A in the word scamper as add, some translate it as adopt. To be creative, adopt from others. One prime instance is Johannes Gutenberg's adoption of movable type printing in the 15th century, which he learned of from Asian innovations. And adoption can be from humans and animals as well. If it weren't for birds, humans wouldn't have thought creatively and invented the airplane. Abbas ibn Firnas adopted the idea of flying from birds. Also, humans adopted the concept of civilization and organizing labor from ant kingdoms. They also adopted climbing tools from lizards. Look at any country or animal kingdom. What can you adopt from them to serve your community? The fourth tip from Scamper is modify. To become creative, you need to modify and improve existing things, which doesn't require addition or integration, but a simple modification to solve an existing problem. For example, cars used to have a square front that slowed the vehicle down by the airflow, so they modified and streamlined the front in a curvy shape to avoid air resistance. This is creative thinking. Modification includes changing the size and dimensions of things. For instance, mobile screens used to be small, so they enlarged them to be as big as the phone itself to solve the problem of clarity. Previously, the ID was depicted in numerous documents too large to carry conveniently, and it was consequently downsized to a compact card format. Look at three things around you. Can you resize them to solve a problem? The fifth tip from Scamper is put to another use. To be creative, you should repurpose things. For instance, while pens serve the purpose of writing, students resourcefully adapt them as makeshift knives for personal fights. This problem-solving approach exhibits creativity, although with a criminal undertone. Similarly, newspaper sheets, originally intended for reading, find new life as towels for cleaning window glasses when repurposed. Cars were only for transportation, but became vehicles for commerce. Look at ice cream carts. That is creative thinking. Repurposing an employee to another position or task is also creative thinking. Look at 3 things and people around you. Can you repurpose them for new functions? The 6th tip from Scamper is eliminate. To be creative, eliminate something from the current thing to make it more practical, as there are unnecessary additions to current things that create more problems than they solve. For example, transactions used to be paper-based, so they eliminated the papers, and transactions now became digital, solving the major problem of paper loss. Similarly, there used to be a rubber tire inside car wheels that used to cause accidents with any sudden puncture while driving, so it was completely removed, and the wheels became tubeless, meaning without an inner rubber tire. They also eliminated CDs, floppy disks, pagers, etc. Look at 3 things around you. Can you eliminate something from them? Not to their detriment, just to become more practical. The last tip from Scamper is rearrange. To be creative, reverse the sequence of steps in any process to make it more practical. They used to put the carriage in front of the horse to push it, but they thought creatively and put the horse in front of the carriage to pull it. They used to go to restaurants, eat, and then run away, which caused a problem, so they reversed it. Pay, then eat. They solved a problem by reversing the order. There used to be a wandering salesman who offered clothes for sale at homes, so they reversed the process and set up stores for you to go to, solving a problem. And now they've returned to it with delivery apps because there's a problem of people not wanting to go out. I personally don't want to go out, just bring me my stuff here. I am sitting on the beach. Ask yourself, is there a process that goes in a certain way and needs rearranging? I hope you've memorized the Scamper tools, as every creative work goes through them practically. In fact, all scientific revolutions and human developments you know today have passed through this model. For example, Galileo claimed that the Earth revolves around the Sun, producing a creative idea through rearranging, a tool from Scamper. Also, Newton asked, why did the apple fall and not rise? He produced the law of gravity through rearranging as well. Charles Darwin also produced the theory of evolution from the modification tool in the Scamper model, claiming that humans evolve and modify over time. Einstein used the combine tool from the Scamper model, combining time and space, producing space-time. Similarly, the idea of quantum mechanics came after combining particle and wave using the combine tool. The Scamper model seems to be the true model behind every creative idea. So, don't underestimate the tools of combination, substitution, and elimination, as you can now predict future revolutions. For example, look at the 3-headed plug for electronics, such as TVs, fridges, etc., and see how big it is. It is expected to become as small as a USB head through the modification tool. Also, consider the computer camera. It is expected to be integrated with the screen through the combine tool, so the screen displays and records. Look at the 3 cameras for the modern iPhone and expect them to remove 2 cameras and return to 1 using the eliminate tool. We have now finished the first section, process, and we will move on to the second section, place. What are the characteristics and conditions of the environment, place that stimulate creativity? What context makes a person creative? There are several incentives, the first being the presence of a problem. The existence of a problem hindering the process and making it slow is a fundamental reason for the emergence of creative ideas. For example, if the patient didn't feel pain during surgery, Anesthetic wouldn't have appeared to solve the problem of pain through the modification tool, modifying the body state so that it doesn't feel any pain. If there were no traffic accidents, the idea of a policeman regulating traffic wouldn't have appeared through the addition tool, and later the policeman was changed to become only a colored traffic light through substitution. The presence of a problem stimulates the mind to find a practical solution, and thinking of a practical solution is the beginning of creative thinking. The second incentive for creativity is the presence of freedom. Without freedom, creativity fades away. Whenever there is an environment imposing political restrictions, you cannot be creative and find solutions for organizations and government institutions for fear of politicians imprisoning you, especially if you were in an Arab country. And whenever there is an environment imposing religious restrictions, you cannot be creative in finding a practical religious decree for the issue of sex mixing, for fear of religious figures excommunicating you. And if there is a social environment imposing restrictions, you cannot be creative in finding solutions for moral, shame, love, and marriage issues for fear of tribal leaders ostracizing you. Ask yourself, do you have the freedom to be creative in finding a solution? The third incentive for creativity is abundance of resources, as there must be sufficient resources for one to become creative. If Einstein had not received his schooling from exceptional teachers, pursued his university education under eminent professors, and found scientific papers readily available for research along with accessible books for reading and studying, he wouldn't have become Einstein. Therefore, an abundance of resources is a prerequisite for creativity. Don't expect someone living in a barren environment without books or teachers to produce something creative as Einstein did, for example. However, there is a disagreement on this matter, as some argue that scarcity of resources encourages creativity, because necessity is the mother of invention, meaning that the more you need something and cannot find sufficient resources to obtain it, the more your mind will generate practical creative solutions. Look at how some African tribes invented tools for water filtration. We conclude this section by briefly mentioning other incentives for creativity. Among them is having a high ceiling, as creativity diminishes when the ceiling is low. Hence, creativity increases when walking due to the absence of a ceiling. Also, bathrooms are where creative ideas emerge due to the relaxation of thinking and the mind being less occupied, as slow thinking yields practical solutions. Similarly, creative ideas arise while driving a car, while aboard airplanes, or while waiting at airports, due to the feeling of boredom, as boredom feeds creativity. Sufficient lighting also stimulates creative abilities, as does listening to music. It is said that Einstein's theory of relativity came to him after listening to music. I don't like these claims, but why not? Let's listen to this music now. We have now finished the second section, or the second P of creativity, which is place, and we now begin the third P, which is person. What are the characteristics of the creative individual? Firstly, curiosity and inquiry. The creative individual is curious and inquisitive. The curious person is concerned about finding a solution, while the inquisitive person is questioning the old solutions. Do you want to know if you are curious and inquisitive? I previously asked you questions such as, look around you for 2 things you can combine to create something new, and look for 3 things and find additions you can delete from them to create something new, etc. Have you truly answered all of them? The curious and inquisitive person loves questions and answers them. Therefore, let us say that your answers to the previous questions determine the extent of your curiosity. The second characteristic of creative individuals: power of observation and monitoring. The creative individual is keen on observation and monitoring, enabling them to notice small problems that others overlook and innovate solutions for them. They patiently monitor their progress and changes, unlike others who lack patience and form opinions hastily. In short, the creative individual is keen-eyed and patient. Here is a method that is good for boosting observation, which is ZOZ method. Using this method, ZI and ZO and ZI, the creative person sharpens their focus with zoom in, then steps back to observe it and see the big picture with zoom out, then returns with zoom in. Ask yourself, are you strong in observation and monitoring? George Bernard Shaw said, "Imagination is the beginning of creation." Therefore, we say that the third trait of creative individuals is power of imagination. Consider Einstein and his theory of relativity. Einstein did not travel into space or calculate his numbers through a spaceship. It is a vast space. But how did he reach his precise calculations? It was through imagination. He completely visualized the vast space in his mind. This is why Einstein said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." Also, consider how scientists were able to observe black holes despite science confirming the inability to see them with the naked eye or sophisticated instruments. It was also through imagination. We can say here that science fiction movies are behind many inventions today, as every creative invention was preceded by an imaginative idea. The fourth trait of creative individuals: openness and acceptance. The creative individual is open-minded and accepting his own ideas proposed, not biased against any one of them. Therefore, it is important to propose several creative ideas without judging them negatively. Have you ever thought about combining a book with a metal artifact, considering the possibility of their combination? Or you reject the idea from the start. For example, have you ever tried deleting something from a car door, modifying a nail clipper, etc.? Or you have no time for this? You can do this through brainstorming, one of the most prominent creative thinking techniques. Propose 50 creative ideas without judging them as bad, stupid, or trivial. Just generate many ideas. And with the number of ideas generated, you may stumble upon a practical, creative one. In short, the creative individual is open and receptive to strange and unreasonable ideas. The fifth trait of creative individuals: flexibility and adaptation. The creative individual is more flexible and adaptable, more changeable and transformative. The creative individual alternates between tools and experiments with them. Charles Darwin said, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one that is most adaptable to change," meaning that only the flexible species that changed and adapted and found practical solutions for survival remained. Do you want to measure your flexibility and adaptability? Review yourself in the previous Scamper tools. Do you alternate between them and diversify their use? Try now all the tools of substitution, combination, addition, elimination, modification, reassignment, deletion, and rearrangement. Try them all now on two things you see in front of you. Sensing the difficulty in doing so confirms your lack of mental flexibility. The sixth trait of creative individuals: boldness and courage. The creative individual is bold and courageous. When Barry Marshall claimed that Helicobacter pylori, stomach ulcer bacteria, causes stomach ulcers, other doctors ridiculed him because the bacteria do not survive in stomach acids. So Barry Marshall decided courageously to swallow these bacteria and indeed developed a stomach ulcer. Only after that, he won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2005. Boldness and courage are what made Marshall believe that addition of bacteria causes ulcers, the addition tool in the Scamper model. Similarly, Dr. Edward Jenner discovered cowpox serum after injecting it into a child who did not contract the disease. Likewise, some commercial companies like Apple, Netflix, and Amazon succeeded despite initial rejection by the public of their ideas. It is boldness and courage. The seventh and final characteristic of creative individuals is tidiness and arrangement. Yes, you may have heard that the desks of creative people are messy. However, it has been proven that the true creative individual is organized and tidy, not chaotic and random. The mental organization and tidiness of a creative individual are reflected in their environment and surroundings. Indeed, all of Scamper's tools lean towards organizational creativity and tidiness. For example, a creative person might use the elimination tool to remove unnecessary furniture to create space that aids clear vision. They might use the substitution tool to replace a large chair with a smaller one to create space. They might use the modification tool to reduce tangled wire spaces, for instance. In short, a creative person is orderly and organized, not chaotic and random as often portrayed. Remember that the 7 characteristics mentioned above are not easily acquired, or else everyone would be creative. These characteristics require practice and training. We have now concluded the third section, or the third P of creativity, which is the creator. Person, turning to the final section, and P, which is the product. What characteristics are required for a product to be creative and practical? First, simplicity and elegance. Every creative product is simple and elegant. This is confirmed by Occam's razor, a famous principle in theory formulation that states, "The simplest and most elegant solution is necessarily the practical and correct one." Without the simplicity of Einstein's equation, the theory of relativity would not have been a creative theory. Therefore, it can be said that the characteristic of simplicity and elegance is specific to intellectual and theoretical creativity. The second characteristic of creative product is magic and impact, and this characteristic is specific to literary and poetic creativity. Every literary product is creative when it is charming and influential, meaning it charms hearts and influences minds. Without the power of magic and impact in the poems of William Wordsworth and John Keats, they would not be counted among the creative poets. Without the power of magic and impact in the stories of Shakespeare and Charles Dickens, they would not be counted among the great novelists. Without the power of magic and impact in the writings of Mark Twain and George Orwell, they would not be counted among the great international writers. Therefore, a requirement of literary creative product is to be charming and influential. We said that the requirements for intellectual and theoretical creativity are simplicity and elegance, and for literary and poetic creativity, magic and impact. Now we say the requirements for artistic and craft creativity are value and meaning. Every artistic and craft product is creative when it has value and meaning. Every creative film and painting has value and meaning. This is why painters like Picasso and Da Vinci are famous among the greatest creative individuals in the world, as their paintings have value and meaning. The painting, although rigid, is alive to the eyes, meaning it has value. And the painting, although mysterious, is thought-provoking to the minds, meaning it has meaning. In short, the more enigmatic and mysterious the artistic product is, the more creative it becomes. So, simplicity and elegance are requirements for a creative product, intellectually and theoretically, and magic and impact are requirements for a creative product, literary and poetic, and value and meaning are requirements for a creative product, artistic and craft. Now we can say that price and quality are requirements for a creative product, technically and electronically. When is a technical product creative? When it has a low price and high quality. Every technical product offered at a nominal price and with high quality is a practical creative product. The inexpensive and practical technical product gains its creativity from its ability to offer the services and qualities of the expensive technical product. Therefore, price and quality are conditions for technical creativity. And here we come to the conclusion of the Unleashing Creativity course. We learned many methods to stimulate creative thinking in terms of 1. Process characteristics, 2. Place characteristics, 3. Person characteristics, and 4. Product characteristics. We discussed all of this in detail, and the most important thing we need to focus here on is not forgetting the Scamper model. It is an effective model that does not disappoint you in reaching something practical. Wait, did I say practical? Please do not forget this word. Creativity is about developing something practical. Forget about the idea of something new, as there is nothing new under the sun. Everything is repeated. Just focus on presenting something practical. Practicality is bringing something, 1. Useful, and 2. New only to a different context. It is enough for what you bring to be useful and novel to humanity, or the place, or the time you live in. This training course, Unleashing Creativity, is taken from the book Training Courses by Muteb Alqarni.